All right, hot take warning. Just because a bottle is expensive, allocated, or hyped to the moon does not mean it's actually good in the glass.
And sometimes the opposite happens. A bottle you had zero expectations for absolutely blows you away. Today, we're putting forward our 10 most disappointing whiskeys and our 10 most surprising. This list is gonna stir up some strong feelings.
Quick shout out to the Barrel Hunters merch store. If you've been rocking with the channel, that's one of the best ways to directly support what we're building.
We've got teas and glassware, all designed by us, and some of our favorite designs are inside jokes from the channel. So if you want to rep the barrelheads in the wild, we'll drop a link in the description below.
All right, let's get into it. First up are our most disappointing whiskeys, where the liquid didn't live up to the noise. Eddie, kick things off for us. What's your first one?
I am kicking this list off with Rare Character Rye. The Batch 3 Rye from 2025 was particularly disappointing, but honestly, you can apply this to several of their whiskeys. It's not that the whiskey is bad. It's not. I very much enjoy Rare Character products, but this pick really represents a bigger trend that I've been noticing over the past year or so. Rare Character has been hyped to death lately. Every new drop feels like an event, bottles are more and more allocated, and as a result, expectations keep getting pushed higher and higher. But honestly, most of the releases I've had just haven't lived up to the hype. A lot of them come in super hot to the point where the proof starts overpowering the actual flavor and takes away from how enjoyable the pour should be. Instead of complexity, you're fighting alcohol burn more than you're discovering nuance. And the other thing that bugs me is how much of a conversation seems to be focused on the labels and the artwork on the outside of the bottle rather than what's inside the glass.
That's so true.
Damn it!
Everybody wants the cool label, and they don't seem to care what's inside.
At the end of the day, cool packaging doesn't make a whiskey great. The liquid still has to carry the experience. Final verdict, hype over substance. The presentation is getting more attention than the whiskey itself.
That's a hell of a way to kick things off.
It sure is.
Yeah, and first up on my list, Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend. And I genuinely love cigar blends. When they're done right, that rich, dark fruit and tobacco layered profile is one of my favorite styles of whiskey. So coming into this at around a $200 price tag, expectations are naturally high. You're expecting depth, complexity, and something that clearly separates itself from the pack. But the reality is, in blind tastings, this bottle keeps getting outclassed by other cognac finished whiskeys that cost way less. Stuff like Old Elk cognac finished and even the 1792 cognac finish consistently beat it for me when the labels come off. And that's really where the disappointment sets in. It's not that Joseph Magnus is bad, it's that at this price point, it should be winning those blind battles, not losing them. If I can get a better experience for a fraction of the cost, it becomes really hard to justify reaching for this bottle again. My final verdict is this is outperformed at its own game. It's a great concept, but the value just doesn't hold up in blind tastings.
My next disappointing bottle is Lendora's MCDX CIV. Otherwise known as 1494.
I love when you read Roman numerals to us, Eddie.
You like that? That's how my wife fell in love with me.
You just spout letters.
Lendora's Abbey is widely recognized for being tied to the earliest written reference to Scotch whiskey. So there's a ton of heritage baked into this bottle before you even pour a glass. And when MCDX CIV, otherwise known as 1494, won double gold at the San Francisco Spirits Competition, I had to get me a bottle of this bad boy. And boy, was I not blown away. Nothing was outright wrong with it. It just didn't deliver the depth or character that you'd hope for given the story behind it. And the awards it won. Price-wise, it's not outrageous. You're talking roughly about $60 to $70. But when a bottle carries this much history and narrative, you expect the whiskey to really stand out. And this one just didn't quite get there for me. Final verdict, story stronger than the sip. The history outshines what is actually in the glass.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I hate it when that happens, Ryan.
I see your lowland scotch, and I am also bringing forward a lowland scotch. My next disappointing bottle is Auchentoshan 12. And this one caught me off guard because I actually really like the Auchentoshan 3 wood. That 3 wood has a lot of character, a lot of richness, and it set a pretty solid expectation for what this distillery can do. So when I jumped into the 12 year, especially with that age statement, I was excited. Typically, age-stated bottles tend to outshine their non-age-stated counterparts. But in this case, that just didn't happen. The 12 felt thinner, less expressive, and just didn't bring the same level of depth or personality that I was hoping for. My final verdict on this, it was outshined by its own sibling, The 3-wood simply delivers a more compelling experience.
My next disappointment is Penelope Havana. Yes, I went there. This one surprised me in the wrong direction because there are a few brands that I enjoy more than Penelope. Penelope Havana is finished in both rum and maple syrup barrels, so I expected sweetness. But I also expected something layered and balanced and a little complex. What I got was a syrupy molasses one-note mess. It was way too sweet for me. Not just dessert sweet, it started creeping into borderline flavored whiskey territory, where the finish felt like it was driving the entire experience instead of complementing the base whiskey. If you love sweeter profiles, you might actually enjoy this, but for what it costs, which is about $80, and how limited it is to find, it just didn't deliver the value or the balance that I expected from Penelope. If I'm hunting a bottle down, I want something that feels nuanced and memorable, not something that tastes like artificial candy. My final verdict: the finish overpowers the whiskey. Save your money and put it towards something that brings more complexity to the table.
This one might anger some people at first until I explain myself.
Okay.
My next one, funny enough, also has a purple themed bottle, the Willet Purple Top. Specifically, the 8-year wheated bourbon in the black bottle. And this one hurts a little because at around $250 and higher, expectations are sky high before you even crack the seal. When you're paying that kind of money, you're expecting cohesion, depth, and something that feels intentionally crafted, not just rare for the sake of being rare. For me, this bottle felt completely disjointed. The flavors never really came together, and the biggest curveball was this heavy floral note that honestly leaned more like a gin than a whiskey. And it wasn't subtle either. It kept pulling me out of the experience, where instead of enjoying the bourbon, I kept asking myself, why does this taste like a botanical garden? And again, I'm not saying this is undrinkable, but at this price point, you're not paying to be confused. You're paying for a polished, memorable pour, and this just didn't deliver that. My final verdict, it's disjointed and off profile. Interesting on paper, but not something I'd ever justify buying again at that price.
My second most disappointing whiskey that I've ever had is Old Forester Birthday Bourbon.
Oh,
I went there.
wow.
You take your Willet and I raise it at Birthday Bourbon.
Damn, you really did one up me on that one.
Old Forester releases its birthday bourbon annually in tiny batches. And the only way to get one is to join an online sweepstakes. And if you're lucky enough to win, you have to pick it up on the day that they tell you to at their distillery in Louisville.
That's inconvenient.
And if you're not there, waiting in line to get this elusive bottle, you're out of luck. If you really want this forced allocated bottle, you might be lucky enough to find it on the secondary market where prices push toward $1,000 for that whiskey.
It's ridiculous, man.
It's not even that great.
No whiskey's worth that much.
Even at the MSRP price of $200, it's overpriced and overhyped. This same bottle was under $50 about 20 years ago. Nothing about this liquid has suddenly become 20 times better. The market just decided it was. But where the disappointment kicks in is in the expectation gap created by how allocated this bottle has become and where the pricing has gone. When you layer that level of hype and scarcity onto a whiskey, it almost forces you to expect a life-changing pour. And that just didn't happen, and that's not a realistic bar for Old Forester's Birthday Bourbon. Final verdict, victim of its own hype. The expectations and secondary pricing have outpaced what the bottle can realistically deliver.
All right, man, let's be honest. I did not see this next one coming. Russell's Reserve 13, Spring 2025.
What?
Yeah.
I like that bottle.
It's the highest proof Russell's 13 release we've seen so far, coming in at 123.8 proof. And here's the thing, I have loved previous iterations of Russell's 13. They've been some of those bottles that genuinely lived up to the hype for me. They're rich, they're balanced, layered, just absolute bangers. So when this release dropped at nearly 10 proof points higher than prior batches, I was pumped. On paper, that felt like more intensity without sacrificing what made that profile special. But sadly, in the glass, it just didn't deliver the same wow factor. For me, it started leaning a little too oaky and a little too hot, where the proof felt like it was driving the experience instead of enhancing it. And to be clear, it wasn't bad by any means, but it lost some of that polish and balance that made earlier Russell's 13 releases feel so dialed in. And at around $200, the disappointment hits harder. At that price point, you want something that feels unquestionably special, not something that feels slightly off compared to its own legacy. Final verdict, proof tipped the balance. Bigger proof, but less harmony than previous releases.
All right, Ryan, I'm here ready to rock and roll with my most disappointing bottle in this entire list.
I cannot wait to hear what it is.
Oh, get ready. Because my most disappointing bottle that I think I have ever had is Blanton's Gold.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I was not expecting you to say that.
Oh, I did not like it.
No?
Not even a little. And this one is really a flavor letdown, especially when you factor in the price sitting at around $150 or more, if you could even find it. The frustrating part is I'm not anti-Blantons across the board at all. I actually like Blantons. I would absolutely pay up for Blanton's straight from the barrel because the flavors justify the hype. But Blanton's Gold just didn't hit the same way for me. The juice was underwhelming compared to what the name and reputation set you up for. That gets me very angry, Ryan.
I can tell.
When we did our Buffalo Trace blind tasting, it ranked towards the bottom of the list. When a bottle carries that much brand heat and so much scarcity, it needs to wow you in the glass. Not just be fine, but be memorable. And then you layer in the availability problem. If this were sitting on shelves constantly, then maybe the value conversation changes. But after hunting this thing down to get it close to MSRP, the taste makes me feel like I purchased Fool's Gold instead of Blanton's Gold. Final verdict. Hype outpaces the flavor yet again. If I'm spending money for Blanton's, I'd rather chase straight from the barrel every time.
So it's time for my most disappointing bottle of all time.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna stay in the Buffalo Trace universe.
Wow, are you now? So the two most disappointing bottles are from Buffalo Trace.
It seems that way.
That is disappointing to say the least.
My biggest disappointment is Elmer T. Lee.
Oh, I actually kind of like it, but it is overhyped for sure.
You know what's always felt strange to me about this bottle is that it actually has a lower MSRP than a lot of other allocated Buffalo Trace products. Yet, it's the one I've probably seen the least on shelves. So naturally, expectations start creeping up. Scarcity creates mystique, and you start thinking there must be something special hiding in there. But once you actually get it in the glass, it's a perfectly okay bourbon. Nothing offensive, nothing broken. It just doesn't justify the chase, the hype, or the mental energy people put into tracking it down. Now, if this bottle happened to fall into my lap at retail, I'd happily drink it, but I'm not spending time or money hunting this one down. My final verdict, it's fine, but not worth the hunt. Drink it. If you find it, don't chase it. Speaking of worth the hunt, we want to officially shout out something new we're building for the Barrel Hunters community, and that's our Patreon. You'll get access to our private Discord, monthly live hangouts and Q&As, virtual tasting nights, voting power on future videos, access to our barrel picks, and even access to our private collections.
So if you've ever wanted a say in what we blind next, what bottles we hunt, or what insane idea we try on the channel, this is where it happens. All right, now let's flip the script and get into our most surprising whiskeys that we have had that have wowed us in the most magical and beautiful way.
I am kicking off my surprising list with a callback to our Lowland conversation.
Okay.
Glenkinchie 12.
Nice, that is a good one. That one surprised me too.
Now this one, I'm sure you remember, absolutely crushed it in our recent Scotch blind tasting. You get a light floral nose, some lemon and orchard fruit, a smooth, easy drinking palate, and a really clean, refreshing finish that keeps you coming back for another sip. What surprised me the most was how balanced and complete it felt. Now, lighter whiskeys can sometimes come across thin or forgettable, especially at this price point, but this one actually has character and structure. At around $70, it delivers everything you want from a classic Lowland style without feeling overpriced or underwhelming. My final verdict, this is a Lowland done right. It's a clean, balanced, easy drinking Scotch that seriously over delivers for the price.
The first surprising bottle on my list is Westland Gariana 10-year. While I'm staying in the single malt world, we're talking two completely different languages. This whiskey is honestly unlike anything I've ever tasted. The Gariana oak brings this completely unique flavor profile that you just don't get from traditional American or European oak. Then you layer in the secondary finishing of PX sherry, rum, and ex-bourbon casks, and the complexity really takes off. In the glass, you're getting this wild range of flavors, from bright strawberries and creamy vanilla on one end, all the way into darker notes like chocolate and baking spice and cinnamon coming from the wood influence. Ryan, I feel like I'm being covered in a blanket of love and sweets and candy, but it's like really good tasting candy, like the good stuff that costs a lot of money. It's just just falling on me, and I'm just loving it.
You have the best blankets in the world.
I have the best blankets.
They're edible too, I imagine.
Yeah, you have to sew it yourself with this like edible thread and really just get in there. Just really get in there and make it nice and tight. And then like you wrap it around yourself and you feel so much love and comfort. But if you are hungry and you just want to take a little bite, you can because it's edible. It's incredible. At around $150, it's not cheap, but this is one of those bottles where the uniqueness and standout flavor profile actually justify the price. It doesn't taste like anything else on the shelf. And that's what makes it such a big surprise for me, and I love it, Ryan. Final verdict, one-of-a-kind flavor bomb. Expensive, but absolutely worth it for the experience.
All right, this one might be a little controversial because technically this is a whiskey-based blend.
Ooh.
It's none other than Bacta 1928.
Okay. All right, you scared me there for a second. I thought you were gonna go with like Jim Beam Honey or something like that. So I'm glad at least it's a very good and reputable bottle.
Thank you. The base of this bottle is 60% rye whiskey. And instead of being finished in barrels, it's actually blended with non-whiskey spirits. Specifically, Calvados, which is a French apple brandy, and Armagnac. Now say what you will about the labeling, the category debates, and where this technically fits on the whiskey family tree, but I put it on this list because it absolutely blew me away. The way the spiciness from the rye, the sweetness and fruitiness from the Calvados, and the earthy depth from the Armagnac all play together is wild. It somehow manages to feel layered, cohesive, and genuinely intentional instead of gimmicky. It's easily one of the most unique pours I've had in a long time, and it's only $70. Final verdict, it's a rule breaker done right. It's not traditional, but insanely compelling in the glass.
This next one came completely out of left field for me. Old Man Winter from Preservation Distillery.
Good choice.
Yes, you knew it was gonna be here at some point.
It had to be.
When I tried this bottle several months back, I had never even heard of it before. And that's saying something because I consider myself a bit of a whiskey historian. And that first sip absolutely took me aback. As the name suggests, this is a perfect cold weather whiskey. You're getting big warming notes of cinnamon and nutmeg, a ton of oak presence, vanilla, and with a proof near 110, it actually gives you that cozy, chest warming feel.
Love that feel.
Is exactly the kind of pour you want when it's cold outside and you want something that feels comforting but still complex, all while being wrapped in a carefully knitted blanket by the fire.
Dude, you have like a crazy collection of blankets.
Even at $170, it earns its keep. This is a bottle that genuinely surprised me in the best way. Final verdict, winter in a glass. Bold, warming, and absolutely delivers on its name.
My next surprise is Teeling Black Pits. And this one hit me right in the sweet spot because it basically married two of my favorite whiskey styles, peated whiskey and Irish whiskey.
That's true. If I know anything about you, is that those are the two things you like to put in your mouth the most.
And that's it.
That's it.
And that's it. The problem is there just aren't many peated Irish whiskeys out there. The only other one I had ever tried before was Connemara. And for me, that one was kind of a middle of the road. So when I finally tried Black Pits, it honestly made me so happy because it nailed that crossover in a way I wasn't expecting. You get the peat presence, but it's not an overwhelming smoke bomb. The secondary maturation in ex-bourbon and sauterne casks brings this nice layer of sweetness that rounds everything out. So it still feels balanced and approachable, especially for a peated whiskey. And the fact that it's triple distilled helps as well. And value-wise, I was lucky enough to snag this for around $55. But even at its more typical $80 range, I still think it delivers something genuinely unique. My final verdict, best of both worlds. Peat and Irish whiskey finally living in harmony.
My next surprise is Garrison Brothers Ladybird. Now this is another bottle sitting right around that $200 price point, but unlike the Joseph Magnus that he talked about earlier, this one actually won our cognac finish blind tasting. Now that's a spoiler alert. Holy smokes, I can't believe I just gave it out there, but I did. And it's for a good reason. This isn't just hype. It's earned its spot head to head among a sea of cognac finished beauties. Interestingly, Ladybird also brings in a honey component, which adds this nice layer of sweetness to the profile. Because this whiskey is aged in the sweltering Texas heat, the bourbon itself still absolutely shines through. You get big, bold whiskey character first, but unlike Penelope Havana, the sweeter finishes complement it instead of overpowering it. That balance is what really impressed me. It managed to feel rich and indulgent without turning into dessert whiskey or losing its backbone. At $200, this is still a premium purchase. But in this case, the flavor, uniqueness, and blind performance actually justify the price. Final verdict, blind tested and battle proven. Big Texas whiskey with real finishing balance.
My next surprise is from Dark Arts. Specifically, their bourbon finish in white port. Now, we really got turned on to Dark Arts in 2025, and I'm so glad we did. Honestly, they're putting on a master class right now in blending and finishing. Some of the most creative, thoughtfully executed stuff on the market right now. They've got wild finishes like Brazilian Amburana, Japanese Mizunara, and about a dozen others, really pushing the boundaries without turning it into gimmicks. But the one that really caught my attention was this white port finish. This particular bottle is a private barrel selection that popped up at one of our local liquor stores, and it absolutely delivered. It's layered, expressive, and just genuinely fun to drink. And more than anything, this is me telling you, do yourself a favor and get acquainted with Dark Arts. If you see their stuff on the shelf, pay attention. They're doing some really impressive work. Final verdict, this is a blender's playground done right. Dark Arts is absolutely a brand to watch.
This next one is a bottle that honestly flew under my radar for years. Rebel 100 6-year. Then in one of our whiskey hunt videos, we gave a local liquor store $100 and told them to pick their 2 favorite high proof bourbons. And one of their picks was Rebel Distillers Collection.
That was a good one too.
That was a fantastic one, and that was a great video. You should go check it out right after this one. That kind of put Rebel back on our radar. Shortly thereafter, I tried Rebel 100 6-year, and that's when I was sold.
I remember you texted me.
Yes.
Like, dude, I'm here at Specs right now. This Rebel is fantastic. I want to buy it.
Yes. They even sketched out barrel hunters on it.
They sure did.
It's a really fruit-forward pour. You get this hit of dark cherry up front and vanilla and caramel on the back end. It's bright, approachable, and way more complex than anything that I ever expected it to be. And to make it even better, this bottle comes in at around $35, which makes it an absolute no-brainer value. If you want an everyday sipper that's not named Buffalo Trace or Wild Turkey 101, I recommend giving it a shot. Final verdict, shelf sleeper. Easy drinking, fruit forward, and ridiculously good for the price.
So glad you added that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did too, because it's a very good one.
That is a great one. Perhaps the biggest surprise on my list is none other than Loch Lomond 12. And this one is kind of the definition of unassuming.
Wow. Okay, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that you're surprised.
There's no big fanfare around it, no massive marketing push, no hype machine behind this bottle. It just quietly sits on the shelf doing its thing. At around $50, it doesn't scream premium or must try either. But what really surprised me is how solid this whiskey actually is, especially if you're someone who's curious about peated scotch. It's peated, but it's not heavily peated. The smoke doesn't dominate the entire experience. That makes it a really great gateway bottle for anyone looking to ease into peat without jumping straight into a full-on smoke bomb. It's also just a really solid everyday sipper. Easy to enjoy, consistent, and way more deserving of attention than it currently gets. My final verdict, it's a gateway peat sleeper. Approachable smoke, great value, and quietly excellent. I cannot wait to hear what you have for your most surprising bottle because there's a lot to choose from.
There is a lot to choose from. And the bottle that surprised me the most might surprise you, and that is Middle West Spirits Dark Pumpernickel Rye.
Dude, great choice.
Right?
Yes.
I haven't had a bad pour from Middle West, so in that sense, I probably shouldn't be surprised. But the fact that this $45 bottle could taste as good as it does and is as memorable as it is makes me feel like a kid on Christmas Day that didn't get what he asked for, but is enjoying that gift even more. Middle West Spirits did an incredible job creating something truly unique. Using a mash bill of dark pumpernickel rye, soft red winter wheat, yellow corn, and 2-row barley. The end result gives you notes of baking chocolate, toasted grain, molasses, and a slight hint of black pepper, just to remind you that you're still drinking a rye. This bottle was also included in our all rye blind tasting, and spoiler alert, this thing beat bottles like E.H. Taylor Rye, Willett 4-year, and Heaven Hill Grain to Glass. Middle West Dark Pumpernickel Rye is the perfect example of how good modern rye can be. And honestly, this is one of those bottles that everyone should have on their shelf. It's that good. Final verdict, shelf essential. A knockout rye that belongs in every serious whiskey lineup. Now it's your turn. What's the most disappointing whiskey that you've ever bought? And what's the bottle that completely surprised you in a good way?
And if you enjoyed this kind of real world, no nonsense whiskey breakdown, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. Until next time, cheers.